Are you curious to what your genes look like? Are your chromosomes similar or different to those of your parents and siblings? Let's find out. Hi, this lesson is going to be about um, chromosomes. So, we need a couple little bits of background before we really dive into chromosomes and cellular division. So, one of the first concept is that cells need to divide to increase in number, but cells also need to reduce their chromosome number before fertilization. So again, for fertilization, we need those haploid cells with half the chromosomes so that when we have a fertilized embryo, it has the proper amount of chromosomes for that organism. Until the mid 1800s, many scientists accepted the theory of spontaneous generation, and that this was that living organisms could arrive from non living matter, so that living things could come from non living. However, in 1855, Rudolf Virchow became the first scientist to publish the conclusion that new cells only arrive from the division of other cells. And this inspired many scientists to study that concept. In 1879, Walter Fleming used a synthetic cloth dye to stain a piece of tissue. The stain was picked up by a substance in the nucleus called chromatin. And he later discovered that chromatin is made up of individual colored structures. And he offered the first accurate description of the full cell cycle, which he called mitosis. And then the full out study of cell division began really after that. So nowadays, scientists know that the structure and function of cells are determined by its genetic material. So the genetic material in the cell is what's going to determine the structure and the function of that cell. Is it a brain cell, a heart cell, a skin cell, a leaf cell, a bark cell? What does it happen to be? And the central feature of each cell cycle is the way the genetic material is duplicated and passed on from the parent cell or the original to the daughter cell, the new cell. So now we're going to look at chromosomes. So eukaryotic cells have a true nucleus. So it's surrounded by a nuclear membrane, and that nucleus is going to contain the cell's genetic material. And the genetic material is composed of the nucleic acids, as well as proteins known as histones. Now, when that cell is not in the process of dividing, which is the majority of the cell's life cycle, the genetic material is called chromatin, which is just unraveled, decondensed strands of genetic material. But during cell division, that chromatin replicates and then it will condense into short, thickened strands called chromosomes. And those chromosomes contain all the DNA found in an organism's cell. Newly replicated chromosomes, so once the chromatin has replicated itself, consist of two sister chromatids that are joined by a centromere. And you'll often see them shown kind of in an X pattern on diagrams. A chromosome can consist of one or two chromatids, depending when exactly in the cell cycle they're observed. So sometimes they're together, sometimes they're apart. And a gene would be a specific segment that codes for a specific trait on a chromosome. So every chromosome has many different genes, and the individual genes code for a specific trait, whether it's blue eyes or curly hair, or having a widow's peak, or anything, color blindness. So here we have some diagrams. So we see in the top left that interphase chromatin, like we said, is just kind of like loose, uncondensed genetic material. And we can also see where it's been condensed into a chromosome. Now this would be what occurs during mitosis or cell division. And on the right-hand image, we can see those purple chromosomes. So every individual chromosome will replicate itself to become sister chromatids. Now these are going to be identical, and they're going to be distributed one to each different daughter cell. So we originally started with one, our DNA replicated, and then each new daughter cell will have one chromosome. So human somatic cells, or every cell except for our gametes, has 46 chromosomes. They can be arranged into 22 pairs of autosomes and two sex chromosomes labeled X or Y. So females have two X's, males have one X and one Y. So the diploid number of chromosomes is 46, so 23 pairs altogether. And it refers to the full complement of chromosomes, and we see this written as 2N. So we have two copies of however many chromosomes we have, the number of chromosomes we have. The number of chromosomes in a haploid cell is 23. So this would be a sperm cell or an egg cell for humans. So haploid refers to one half of the full complement of chromosomes and is just written as N. So N is the number of chromosomes that there are. Diploid, again, 2N. So we have 2 of the 23 chromosomes. You'll see other organisms that are polyploid, so that could be tetraploid, 4N. Bananas, for example, are 8N, so they have 8 copies of each chromosome. On our 20th of the 23 chromosomes, your biological father would have given you 23 from the sperm at conception. One of them carried the gene for eye color. Same with one of the genes that came from your biological mother's egg. These chromosomes are considered to be a pair because they both code for the same thing, and then they're similar in shape and size. So they can be a little bit different, but because each chromosome will have the same gene locations on it, even though they don't code for the exact same trait, so like you might have a blue eye and a brown eye, they're considered homologous chromosomes because they code for the same genes. So chromosomes that are similar in shape and size and gene arrangement are called homologous chromosomes or homologs. So we see that here. So we have the homologous chromosomes, one purple, let's pretend it's from the mother, one green from the father. Then during the process of cell division, each of them will replicate. So then we have 2 purple and 2 green. That way, during cell division, when we have a new daughter cell, each of them will have 1 copy of each, replicating what the parent had originally. So homologous chromosomes carry the same genes at the same location or locus. So they're not identical to each other because, again, one came from the sperm and one came from the egg. So they're not identical genes. But they carry different forms or alleles of the same gene. So they code for the same information, but slightly different variations of it. A picture of all the chromosomes arranged in their pairs is called a karyotype, and this is useful for identifying chromosomal disorders. So when you're looking at a karyotype, it should have 2 copies of each chromosome. So we can see here chromosome 1, 2, 3, all the way through to 1X and 1Y at the end, demonstrating that this would be a male karyotype. Just take an interesting note here about how much smaller the Y chromosome is than the X. It codes for very little information compared to the X chromosome. Which in later topics we'll talk about why males are more susceptible to certain disorders than females that are carried on the X chromosome. But you can see that they are similar but not identical in the different pairings, and this is because, again, one came from an egg and one came from a sperm. So that was our lesson today on chromosomes. It was great to see you guys again. Catch you next time. Bye.